The hum of the heart monitor was the only sound she trusted. Elara lay in the sterile white room, the scent of antiseptic battling the sweet new scent of the baby in her arms. She had done it. Lily was here. Perfect. She looked at her husband Marcus, expecting joy, but saw only a man standing in his own shadow. Then his mother Eleanor stepped forward. She wasn't carrying balloons. She wasn't carrying a teddy bear. She was carrying a manila envelope, which she slid onto the bedside table right next to the half-eaten Jell-O. "We've taken the liberty," Eleanor said, her voice as cold as the steel on the IV pole, of handling the arrangements. "These are divorce papers." The words hung in the air, thick and toxic, poisoning the sacred atmosphere of the maternity ward. Elara's breath hitched. The stitches from her C-section pulled in a sharp, searing protest. What did you say? Marcus, her husband of 2 years, couldn't meet her eyes. He was fixated on a crack in the ceiling tiles, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his tailored trousers. He looked less like a new father, and more like a child dragged to a funeral. His mother, Eleanor Lockwood, however, looked directly at Elara. Her gaze was one of practical, emotionless assessment, like a butcher inspecting a cut of meat. She wore a string of pearls that probably cost more than Elara's entire decoy freelance design business earned in a year. "I said," Eleanor repeated, enunciating every syllable, "these are divorce papers. We, that is Marcus, has decided this marriage was a mistake, an error in judgment." "A mistake?" Elara's voice cracked. She clutched baby Lily closer, a primal instinct to shield her from this. She's an hour-old, Eleanor. She's your granddaughter." "That is a biological fact, yes," Eleanor conceded, unfazed. "But a Lockwood heir deserves a certain lineage, a certain foundation, one you simply cannot provide." The cruelty was so profound, so sudden, that Elara's mind struggled to process it. This was the woman whose Sunday dinners she had endured, whose passive-aggressive comments about her simple background she had ignored, all for the love of Marcus. And Marcus, he just stood there. "Marcus," Elara pleaded, her voice a raw whisper. "Look at me. Look at her. Tell me this isn't real." Marcus finally tore his gaze from the ceiling. His eyes were red-rimmed, but not with tears of joy. They were tears of weakness, of pure, unadulterated cowardice. "Elara, it's for the best. Mother is right. This isn't working." "Not working," she shrieked, the sound tearing from her throat. "I just gave birth to your child." "Please, Elara, don't be hysterical." Eleanor sighed, waving a dismissive hand. "It's so unbecoming. We are prepared to be generous, given your situation. There is a settlement proposal in there. We've backdated the separation agreement to 6 months ago to make things cleaner. It states irreconcilable differences." "Backdated?" Elara felt the blood drain from her face, replaced by a glacial cold rage. They had been planning this. While she was pregnant, while she was picking out names and painting a nursery, they were meeting with lawyers. "Of course," Eleanor continued, "we can't have this entanglement, sullying the Lockwood name. We will provide a small trust for the child provided you sign the custody papers. She will naturally be raised by us. You can have visitation." Custody. Elara was shaking now, a tremor that started in her hands and spread through her entire body. "You want to take my daughter?" "We want to raise her," Eleanor corrected. "You can't possibly give her the life she deserves. What can you offer a 2-bedroom apartment paid for by freelance gigs? She needs stability. She needs the right schools, the right connections." Elara stared at the manila envelope. It was a declaration of war. She looked at Marcus, a man she once thought she loved, and saw only a hollow shell. She looked at Eleanor, a woman whose entire identity was built on a name and a bank account she didn't even earn. And then Elara did something no one expected. She stopped shaking. Her breathing evened out. The tears welling in her eyes receded, replaced by a stillness that was far more terrifying. She carefully adjusted Lily in her arms, kissed her tiny forehead, and then very slowly lifted her gaze to her mother-in-law. "Eleanor," she said, her voice quiet, but vibrating with a new, terrifying power. "Did you read the part of my hospital admission form under emergency contact?" Eleanor frowned. "What are you babbling about?" "It wasn't Marcus," Elara said. "It was Sebastian Vance." "Your brother," Marcus mumbled, finally speaking. "You said he was a project manager." Elara's lips curved into a smile that held no warmth. "Something like that. He's my COO." The confusion on their faces was palpable. "And this settlement," Elara continued, gesturing to the envelope with her chin. "I'm sure it's lovely, but I have to reject it. As for custody, you will not come within 100 feet of my daughter again, not without a court order, which you will not get." Eleanor scoffed. "And who exactly is going to stop me? Your project manager brother." "No," Elara said, shifting her weight. The pain from her incision was a grounding reminder of what she had just endured. "My lawyers and my bank account." She locked eyes with Marcus. "Get out!" "Elara, be reasonable," Marcus stammered, his bravado crumbling into confusion. "Mother, maybe we should get out." This time the voice was not that of Elara, the freelance designer. It was not Elara, the simple, accommodating wife. It was the voice of Vance Sterling, the woman who had built a 9 billion empire from nothing. It was the voice of a woman who had just been handed a war, and who fully intended to win. Eleanor, for the first time, looked uncertain. She grabbed the envelope and clutched it to her chest. "You will regret this, Elara. You have no idea the power you are trifling with." "No, Eleanor," Elara said, settling back against the pillows, her daughter sleeping peacefully on her chest. "You have no idea." They left. The door clicked shut, leaving a silence that was heavier than all their screaming. Elara looked down at Lily. "Well, little one," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion again. "It looks like it's just you and me, and about 4,000 employees. Let's get to work." She reached for her personal phone, not the one Marcus knew about, but the encrypted one, and dialed a number. "Sebastian," she said, her voice firm. "They did it. It's time. Activate the Phoenix Protocol." To understand how Elara Vance Sterling, the enigmatic founder of Aura Sphere, a tech and wellness conglomerate that had quietly devoured the market, ended up in this position, you had to understand why she was hiding in the first place. Elara hadn't been born into wealth. She'd been born into a world of spreadsheets and code. She'd built Aura Sphere from her college dorm room, fueled by ramen, and a relentless belief that technology could be used to genuinely improve lives. She coded the first iteration of the Aura Wellness app herself, under the pseudonym Vance, to avoid the rampant sexism of the tech bro world. When the app exploded, so did her life. By 25, she was a paper billionaire. By 28, she was liquid. But she was also isolated. Every man she met either wanted to be her sugar baby or her business rival. She was surrounded by yes men and sycophants. She was sick of it. So she crafted a new identity. Elara Vance, a simple, talented freelance graphic designer. She kept her high-security penthouse in the city, which she told people she was house-sitting for a rich client, but rented a modest, normal apartment where she supposedly lived. She wore clothes from the Row and Loro Piana, but to the untrained eye of the Lockwoods, the minimalist logo-free wools and cashmeres looked like nice basics from Zara. She'd met Marcus Lockwood at a charity fundraiser she'd attended as E. Vance, a major donor. He was there trying to network to drum up investment for his family's flailing business, Lockwood Textiles. He didn't recognize her when she bumped into him 2 weeks later at a coffee shop dressed as Ilara, her hair in a messy bun, sketching on an iPad. She let him discover her. She let him be the big man from the important family. He was handsome, charming in a shallow way, and she'd thought kind. He was her escape into normalcy. She fell in love not with him, but with the idea of him, the idea of a normal life. The Lockwoods, however, were another story. From the first dinner, Eleanor had made her distaste clear. The Lockwoods presented themselves as old money, residing in a sprawling but slightly dated mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. They spoke of their heritage, their standards, and their company Lockwood Textiles. Graphic design, Eleanor had said at that first dinner, tasting the words as if they were spoiled milk. How creative. Is there much of a future in that? It pays the bills, Ilara had replied, with a quiet smile, thinking of the $50 million R&D budget she'd just approved for Aura Sphere's new biotech wing. Eleanor had zeroed in on her. And your family, dear, the Vances, I'm not familiar with them. Are they East Coast Vances? Midwest Vances, Ilara said. My parents passed away when I was young. I have a brother, Sebastian. He's in project management. Sebastian, in reality, was Sebastian Vance Sterling, her cousin, and closest confidant. He was the public-facing COO of Aurasphere, a man with an MBA from Stanford, and the ruthless efficiency of a military general. He had played his part as her project manager brother, with theatrical flair, complaining about his tough boss, Ilara, over Thanksgiving dinner. The Lockwoods' wealth Ilara had known from the start was a house of cards. Her private financial team, as a matter of course, had run a background check on Marcus before their third date. Lockwood Textiles was a dinosaur refusing to modernize. They were leveraged to the hilt, drowning in debt and living off their reputation. This, Ilara realized, was why they were so cruel. They weren't just snobs. They were desperate. The other woman, Eleanor had mentioned, was their lottery ticket. Or so they thought. Marcus has reconnected with Isabella Davenport. Eleanor had cooed to her friends at a country club luncheon just last week, a fact Ilara's security detail had dutifully reported. Yes, those Davenports. The shipping scions. A much more suitable match. Ilara knew all about Isabella Davenport. Sebastian's team had already compiled a file. Isabella wasn't a Davenport at all. Her real name was Jessica Riley, a mid-level con artist from Florida who specialized in fleecing entitled desperate men. She'd leased a Bentley, rented a mansion, and was busy convincing the Lockwoods she was their savior. The Lockwoods were trying to dump a penniless designer to marry their son into a dynasty, not realizing they were trading a secret billionaire for a complete fraud. The irony would have been funny if Ilara wasn't looking at her newborn daughter's face, wondering how a father could walk away from this. The Phoenix Protocol she had activated was a contingency she and Sebastian had created when she first decided to marry Marcus. A what-if scenario. It involved 3 phases. Phase 1, containment. Secure Ilara and the baby. Phase 2, fortification. Assemble the legal and financial teams. Phase 3, reckoning. A systematic, precise, and overwhelming response. As Elara sat in the hospital bed, the door opened. It wasn't a nurse. It was two large men in dark suits with earpieces. They were followed by Sebastian, who looked immaculate in a Tom Ford suit carrying a baby carrier that likely cost more than a car. "Sebastian," Elara sighed in relief. "Elara." He kissed her forehead, then gazed at the baby. She's a Vance Sterling. She's perfect. The team is here. The car is downstairs. Your discharge papers are being handled." Handled. Dr. Peterson was a major beneficiary of our Aura Health Hospital grant last year. He was more than happy to expedite your discharge due to family stress. Sebastian's team worked with silent efficiency. They swept the room for listening devices, a standard paranoid precaution for Elara, which now seemed chillingly necessary. They packed her bag. Sebastian gently took Lily, strapping her into the high-security carrier. "The Lockwoods?" Elara asked, as they moved her into a wheelchair. "In the lobby," Sebastian said, his voice tight. "Eleanor is making a scene, demanding to see her granddaughter. Hospital security is unpersuaded. They're being detained for causing a disturbance." Good. They didn't use the main elevator. The security team guided them to a private service elevator. As the doors opened to the underground parking garage, Elara saw it. Not her normal Subaru, but the matte black bulletproof Mercedes Maybach. "I see we're skipping the subtlety," Elara murmured. "Phase 2 has begun, boss," Sebastian said, opening the door for her. "We're going home. The real home." The real home was not the two-bedroom apartment Marcus had known. It was the penthouse of the Ether Tower, a building Elara's holding company, Vance Sterling Holdings, owned entirely. The elevator opened directly into her living room, a 3-story expanse of glass and steel overlooking the city. A full-time vetted staff, including a neonatal nurse Elara had on retainer for someday, was waiting. "Welcome home, Ms. Vance," the nurse, a kind-faced woman named Clara, said. "We have the nursery prepared precisely to your specifications." The penthouse was less a home and more a fortress. It ran on a separate power grid, had its own air filtration system, and was monitored 24/7 by a security team run by ex-Mossad agents. This was the E. Vance side of her life, the side that managed billions and had to worry about corporate espionage and kidnapping threats. Elara handed Lily to Clara. "She's just eaten. I need an hour and a shower." "Of course, madam." Elara walked into her master suite. Her normal clothes were gone. Hanging in her closet was her true armor, a row of custom-tailored suits, silk blouses, and the quiet, lethal elegance of a woman who runs the world. She showered the hospital smell circling the drain. As the hot water sluiced over her, the shock began to wear off, replaced by a cold, crystalline anger. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't a simple divorce. This was a conspiracy. They had waited until she was at her most vulnerable post-birth, hormonal exhausted, to try and steal her child. She emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a robe and found Sebastian in her home office. The room was already a command center. Multiple screens showed stock tickers, news feeds, and encrypted communications. "Status," Elara said, tying her robe. "The Lockwoods were released from hospital security. Eleanor is screaming kidnapping to anyone who will listen." "Let her. It'll be a good test for our slander case. What's their financial position today?" Sebastian pulled up a file. "Worse than we thought. Lockwood Textiles isn't just failing. It's a corpse. They've been cooking the books for 3 quarters. They have a $15 million balloon payment due on a bridge loan in 10 days. The lender is Sterling Garrick Financial." Elara's eyebrows shot up. Us, Sebastian confirmed. "A small aggressive lending firm we acquired last year for its distressed asset portfolio. The Lockwoods loan was buried in the package. They have no idea they owe their biggest debt to you." A slow, dangerous smile spread across Ilara's face. Oh, that is poetic. Call the loan. Call it now. I want a default notice on their desk by morning." "I already have the team drafting it," Sebastian said. "But there's more. The other woman, Isabella Davenport, aka Jessica Riley. She's not just a con artist, she's good. She just convinced Richard Lockwood to liquidate his last remaining and hidden private stock portfolio, about $2 million, and invest it with her in an offshore venture. She's bleeding them dry before they even sign the marriage certificate. Perfect. Let her. We'll send our file on her to the FBI, but not yet. Let her take them to the cleaners first. What about Marcus?" Sebastian's face softened. "He's been calling your normal phone. It's going straight to the decoy voicemail. He's left 14 messages. They're pathetic. He's confused. He loves you. He's sorry. His mother made him do it." "He's a child," Ilara said, the disgust thick in her voice. "He's irrelevant. Focus on Eleanor and Richard. They're the head of the snake." "Which brings us to phase 3, Sebastian said, turning to a new screen. "The legal team." Ilara didn't use a local lawyer. Her legal team was a global force. "I want Julian Thorne," Ilara said. Sebastian winced. "Julian Ilara that's bringing in a tactical nuclear weapon to a knife fight. He's not a divorce lawyer. He's a corporate executioner. He handled the Sony Aurasphere media merger." "This isn't a divorce, Sebastian. This is a hostile takeover of my life. They came for my child. They're getting Julian Thorne. He's in London. He'll be in New York." The next morning at the Lockwood mansion, chaos reigned. "What do you mean, kidnapping?" Eleanor shrieked at her son, Marcus. "She's the mother. She just left. She left in a car I've never seen." Marcus paced the threadbare Persian rug. "It was like something a president rides in, and the men with her. Mother, they looked dangerous." "Don't be ridiculous." Richard Lockwood, the family patriarch, snapped from behind his copy of the Wall Street Journal. His face was a pale, pasty gray. "She's a designer. She's bluffing. She probably hired some actors." "Then what is this?" Their lawyer, a small-time local attorney named Bob Greer, said, waving a piece of paper. He had been summoned for an emergency breakfast meeting. "This was just delivered by courier. It's from Thorne, Adler and Croft." "Is that good?" Eleanor asked. "Good," Greer laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound. "Eleanor Julian Thorne is the senior partner. He doesn't do divorce. He does dismemberment. He represents oligarchs and tech titans. We're not in the same league. We're not in the same sport. We're not even playing the same planet." Before Richard could respond, the maid, one of the last remaining staff, walked in holding a silver tray. "Another courier, Mr. Lockwood. This one is marked Final Notice from Sterling Garrick Financial." Richard snatched the letter. His hands shook as he read it. The Wall Street Journal slipped from his lap. "Richard, what is it?" Eleanor demanded. Richard looked up, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror. They called the loan. The $15 million. They're demanding payment in full. Default. They're seizing our assets." "But they can't," Eleanor cried. "We have 10 days. The default clause," Richard whispered, "was based on material misrepresentation of assets. They're claiming we've been insolvent for months." "That's Ilara. It has to be," Marcus shouted. "How does she have this kind of power?" Bob Greer sank into a chair. "Forget the divorce. Forget the baby. We need to talk about bankruptcy. As in, tomorrow." The phone rang. It was Greer's office. His secretary was frantic. "They're here," Greer stammered, his face white. "Julian Thorne's associates. They're at my office. They want to schedule an immediate deposition. For all of you." "Tell them to wait," Eleanor shouted. "I can't," Greer squeaked. "They've just served me with a temporary injunction and a lease pendants. They've frozen all your known accounts. Eleanor, Richard, they've frozen everything." The deposition was scheduled for 48 hours later. It was, as Julian Thorne's summons had so politely put it, non-negotiable. The Lockwood family, for the first time in their lives, was well and truly terrified. Their old money swagger had evaporated, replaced by the panicked scrambling of cornered animals. Their local lawyer, Bob Greer, was so far out of his depth he was practically drowning. He had spent the last 2 days trying to get a single one of Julian Thorne's associates on the phone, only to be routed to paralegals who spoke to him with bored surgical precision. "They won't budge," Greer told the Lockwoods, his tie undone, his hair a mess. "They say any attempt to delay will be met with a motion for sanctions." "What about Isabella?" Eleanor demanded, her voice sounding shrill. "Her family has influence. Can't the Davenports make a call? I tried to call her," Marcus admitted, looking miserable. He was sitting on a priceless antique chaise lounge that as of yesterday was now collateral in a default. "The number she gave me. It's disconnected." "What?" Eleanor's head snapped toward him. "And the rental house she was at," Richard added, reading a text. "The leasing agency just called. She's gone. Cleared out. The Bentley was leased. It was all fake." The silence in the grand, dusty drawing room was absolute. The con was up. The beautiful, wealthy heiress who was supposed to save their family was in fact just another shark in the water, and she had taken their last $1.2 million with her. Eleanor Lockwood actually stumbled. She gripped the back of a chair. She stole from us." "Yes," Marcus said, his voice dead. "And now Elara is going to finish the job." Meanwhile, in the ether tower, Elara was not just recovering, she was rebuilding. The penthouse was now a hybrid of a neonatal unit and a war room. Elara, holding Lily, paced the floor of the boardroom, while Sebastian and a team of analysts projected data onto a smart glass wall. "Julian Thorne's team is ready," Sebastian reported. "They've filed the injunction. They've frozen the accounts. The notice of default on Lockwood Textiles is public." "What's the blowback?" Elara asked, her voice calm. "Total. Their creditors are lining up. The board is demanding Richard's resignation, not that the board matters, since we now effectively are the board. The Greenwich Chronicle is already sniffing around asking why the proud family company is shuttering. They're ruined, Elara, before we even get to the deposition." Elara looked down at Lily, who was making a small, sleeping fist. She felt a pang, not of pity, but of a strange, hollow sadness. This was the family she had tried to join. This was the man she had loved. "No," Elara said. "They think they're ruined. They don't know the meaning of the word yet. They tried to take my daughter. They tried to render me penniless and homeless. They don't get to just be bankrupt. They need to understand what they did." "What's the next move?" Sebastian asked. "The deposition. I'll be there. And Sebastian," she said, looking up, "I want you to leak the Forbes story, the one we've been sitting on." Sebastian blinked. "The Phantom CEO piece, the full E. Vance, reveal Elara, that's the final card. Are you sure your privacy will be gone? Forever?" "My privacy was an illusion," Elara said. "It was a luxury I can no longer afford. They built this entire scheme on the idea that I was a nobody. I want them to see with the whole world exactly who they tried to destroy." "I'll make the call," Sebastian said, a grim smile on his face. "It'll be live by 9 a.m. tomorrow, just as you walk into the deposition." "Good," Elara said. "Now I need Julian Thorne on a video call. And get me the file on Isabella Davenport. I want to send a little gift to the U.S. Marshals." The Lockwoods' world had crumbled in 48 hours. But for Elara, It was just the beginning. She was dismantling their facade, brick by brick, until nothing was left but the truth. The next morning, Elara left Lily in the care of Nurse Clara and the security team. She stepped into her private elevator not as the simple girl from the hospital, but as herself. She was wearing a bespoke midnight blue military-style suit. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, powerful ponytail. Her only jewelry was a simple watch, a Patek Philippe prototype that wasn't even on the market. She was flanked by Sebastian and two of her personal security team. The car, the same Maybach, pulled up to the sterile glass and steel office building where the deposition was being held. As she stepped out, she heard the click, click, click of cameras. Paparazzi. Dozens of them. Ms. Vance, is it true? Are you the founder of Aurasphere? Elara over here Forbes is calling you the Phantom CEO. Sebastian shielded her, but Elara just raised her chin. She didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She just walked a queen walking into her court. Upstairs in the conference room, the Lockwoods were waiting. They looked like they hadn't slept. They looked small. "What is that noise?" Eleanor hissed, looking out the window at the media circus below. It's for her," Marcus said, his face ashen. He was looking at his phone at the Forbes homepage. The headline was blazing the Phantom of Ether Tower, how E. Vance, the world's most reclusive billionaire, built a 9B empire. The article featured a high-resolution professional photo of Elara, a photo she had personally approved. E. Vance, Richard whispered. Elara, Vance, Sterling. The conference room door opened. In walked Julian Thorne, a man who looked like he could foreclose on a country. He was followed by a team of 6 associates, each carrying a banker's box of files. And then Elara walked in. The room fell silent. Marcus looked at her, his jaw slack. He was not looking at his wife. He was looking at a complete and total stranger. "Good morning," Elara said, her voice echoing in the silent room. "Shall we begin?" The deposition was taking place in a vast, soul-crushingly beige conference room at Julian Thorne's firm. The air was chilled. A court stenographer was already seated, her fingers poised. The Lockwoods, Eleanor, Richard, and Marcus were huddled on one side of the massive mahogany table with their lawyer Bob Greer. They looked small and wilted like dying plants. The Forbes article had been released exactly 1 hour prior, and the shock was still rippling through them. Then Elara entered. It wasn't just her suit or her entourage. It was her presence. The exhausted, vulnerable new mother from the hospital was gone. In her place was a CEO, a commander. "Ms. Vance," Bob Greer stammered, standing out of nervous reflex. "My clients, there's been a terrible misunderstanding." Elara didn't even look at him. She took her seat at the head of the table. Julian Thorne sat at her right hand. "Mr. Thorne," Elara said, her voice clear and carrying. "Please begin." Julian, a man whose smile had been known to devalue stocks, opened a sleek black binder. "Thank you, Ms. Vance. Let the record show that Elara Vance Sterling, Richard Lockwood, Eleanor Lockwood, and Marcus Lockwood are present for this deposition regarding the divorce proceedings and the custody of the minor child, Lily Vance Sterling." He turned his gaze on Bob Greer. "Mr. Greer, my office sent you my client's financial disclosure this morning. I trust you've had time to review the 84-page summary." Greer, who had received the document via email and seen the final number. A figure with 10 digits, looked like he was going to be physically ill. Yes. Yes, we have. Mr. Thorne, in light of this new information, my clients are prepared to withdraw the divorce petition immediately. And the custody? All of it. We withdraw. Eleanor nodded frantically. Yes, a mistake. We just want what's best for Alara. We love Alara. Julian Thorne held up a hand. The room fell silent. That's very kind of you, he said, his voice laced with acid. But I'm afraid we are not accepting your withdrawal. My client, Ms. Vance Sterling, is now countersuing for divorce, on grounds of fraud, emotional distress, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference. Conspiracy? Greer squeaked. What else? Thorne continued. Would you call a premeditated plan to serve a woman with divorce papers less than an hour after childbirth? A plan, I might add, that included a backdated separation agreement and a fraudulent settlement designed to rob her of her parental rights. He slid a document across the table. Exhibit A, a sworn affidavit from your former paralegal, who you let go last month. She kept very meticulous notes of your meetings with Eleanor and Richard. She details quite clearly the plot to remove the child from the indigent mother. Greer's face went from pale to translucent. But that's not why we're here today, Thorne said, steepling his fingers. We're here to discuss assets. Mr. Richard Lockwood, let's talk about Lockwood Textiles. The company is in default, Richard mumbled. It is, Thorne agreed. A default on a $15 million loan held by Sterling Garrick Financial, a firm, as you now know, wholly owned by my client. We are calling that loan. We are seizing the company's assets, its properties, and its brand name to satisfy the debt. You can't, Eleanor cried. That's our family's legacy. Your family's legacy, Thorne countered, was a bankrupt shell you were using as a piggy bank. Which brings me to Exhibit B. He signaled an associate who placed a set of spreadsheets in front of them. These are your personal bank records, Mr. Lockwood. They show a transfer of $1, $2 million from a hidden brokerage account to an offshore entity. An entity run by a Ms. Isabella Davenport, or as the FBI knows her, Jessica Riley. Marcus flinched as if he'd been slapped. You, Thorne said, pointing his pen at Richard, committed wire fraud and violated the terms of your loan by hiding that asset. And you, he said, swiveling to Eleanor, were an active participant in the conspiracy. We have the text messages to Ms. Riley promising her a cut of the Lockwood estate once Marcus was free. You were both being conned while simultaneously trying to con my client. Eleanor Lockwood looked for the first time in her life like she had been truly and completely defeated. This, Thorne said, his voice dropping to a predatory whisper, is a criminal matter. My client has not yet decided if she will be handing these files to the district attorney. What do you want? Richard whispered. He was a broken man. My client wants clarity, Thorne said. She wants this over. You will sign this. He slid a new document across the table. It was a single page. This is a full and final divorce settlement. You, Marcus, will get nothing. No alimony, no assets, no access to Orisphere, no payout. You will walk away with the clothes on your back and the debts you've personally incurred. And my daughter. Marcus finally spoke, his voice cracking. Lily, I want to see my daughter. Alara, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke. Her voice cut through the room like a shard of ice. No. Marcus looked at her, his eyes wide and pleading. Alara, please. She's my daughter. I love her. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. You're sorry you got caught, Alara said, standing up. You're sorry I'm not the poor, simple girl you could push around. You're sorry your mother's plan didn't work. You sat there in that hospital room and you watched them try to take my child. You didn't not know. You chose. My mother, he started. Your mother is a criminal, Elara said flatly. And you are a coward. You will have no parental rights. Your name will not be on the birth certificate. You will not see her. You will not contact her. She will know one day that her mother's strength was enough for both of them. She turned to Eleanor and Richard. As for you, the loan on your company, it's been bought by me as of 9:00 a.m. this morning. The company is mine. The house in Greenwich, which was leveraged as collateral, is mine. I am evicting you. You have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings. You can't, Eleanor shrieked. Where will we go? I couldn't possibly care, Elara said. She looked at Julian. Are we done? One last thing, Thorne said. He looked at Marcus. You will sign a comprehensive lifetime non-disclosure agreement if you ever speak of Miss Vance. Sterling. Your brief marriage or your child to anyone, a reporter, a friend, a future girlfriend, she will sue you for breach of contract and she will own your future for the rest of your life. Do you understand? Marcus, tears streaming down his face, just nodded, his body shaking. Elara walked to the door. She paused her hand on the handle and looked back at the family that had tried to destroy her. My project manager brother Sebastian, she said. He'll be the one overseeing the liquidation of Lockwood Textiles. He's very much looking forward to it. She turned and walked out of the room, her heels clicking decisively on the marble floor. She didn't look back. The aftermath of the deposition was not a battle. It was a surrender. Marcus, Eleanor, and Richard signed everything. They signed away the company, the house, the divorce, the custody. They signed the NDAs. They were terrified. The threat of criminal charges for fraud combined with the public humiliation had broken them. Elara was true to her word. At 9:00 a.m. the next day, a team of professional movers employed by one of Elara's holding companies arrived at the Greenwich mansion. Sebastian was there in a crisp suit holding a clipboard. Ms. Lockwood, he said to Eleanor, who was standing on the lawn in a bathrobe, her hair wild. You have 1 hour, personal effects only. The antiques, the art, the silver, all of it is now the property of Vance Sterling Holdings pending auction to satisfy your debts. Eleanor wept. Richard just sat on the steps, a vacant look in his eyes. The empire built on a name and a lie had fallen in a single day. Marcus was nowhere to be found. He had, as Sebastian's team later reported, taken a bus to a friend's apartment in the city, carrying a single duffel bag. Elara, back in the ether tower, watched none of this. She was in the nursery, holding Lily, as the Forbes interview went live on television. The world was finally meeting E. Vance. And so, the reporter was saying in a pre-recorded interview, you built this entire multi-billion-dollar conglomerate in secret. Why, Elara on screen looked poised and powerful. I didn't build it in secret, she replied, her voice smooth and confident. I just built it without ego. I wanted the work to speak for itself. I wanted Aurasphere to be the brand, not Elara Vance. But that's changing now. Why come forward? Elara on screen paused. She looked directly into the camera. I became a mother, and I realized that hiding my strength was a disservice to my daughter. I want her to grow up seeing that a woman's power isn't something to be hidden or ashamed of. It's something to be used, to build, to protect. And your recent personal challenges, the reporter pressed gently. The divorce. My personal life, Elara said, was a lesson. I learned that some people are only interested in you when they think you are small. They are terrified of a woman who knows her own worth. I am no longer interested in accommodating those people. My focus is my daughter and my company, and we are launching a new initiative." "Tell me," the reporter said. "It's called the Phoenix Foundation," Elara said, "funded by a $500 million personal endowment. It will provide legal services, financial support, and relocation services for mothers and children in situations of domestic and financial abuse. No woman should ever be made to feel small or threatened or trapped, especially not when she is at her most vulnerable." In the penthouse, the real Elara smiled, kissing Lily's head. "That's for you, little one." The world exploded. Aurasphere's stock, which was privately held but had public bonds, soared. Elara was inundated with messages of support. She was instantly lauded as a feminist icon, a business visionary, and a mama bear in the shark tank of the corporate world. She was also, in some circles, terrifying. The woman who had, in 48 hours, publicly unveiled herself as a billionaire, dismantled her enemies, and launched a $500 million charity. The Lockwoods, in contrast, vanished. Their names were mud. Lockwood became a byword in Greenwich circles for failure and scandal. Eleanor and Richard were last seen moving into a small rented condo in a less than fashionable part of Florida, their old money reputation permanently incinerated. And Marcus. He tried one last time. He showed up at the Ether Tower, begging the security guards. "Please, just tell her I'm here. I'm her husband. I was..." Elara, who was monitoring the lobby feed from her office, watched him. He looked thin, disheveled. The charm was gone, revealing the weak, hollow man beneath. He was crying. "Send him up," she said against Sebastian's immediate protest. "Elara, that's not..." "It's fine, Seb. Send him up. I'll be in the lobby." She took the private elevator down. The lobby of the Ether Tower was a cavern of Italian marble and glass with a 30-foot waterfall. Marcus was standing in the middle of it, looking like a shipwreck. "Elara," he breathed, rushing forward. "Elara, thank God. I saw the interview. It was amazing. You're amazing. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. My mother, she poisoned me." Elara stood still, her arms crossed. "And you drank it?" "Yes, but I'm clean now. I see it. I love you, Elara, not the money. I loved you when you were a designer. I love you now. We can fix this for Lily. For us." He reached out to touch her. Elara took one step back. "Marcus," she said, and her voice was not unkind. It was something worse. It was indifferent. "You didn't love Elara, the designer. You loved a version of me that made you feel big. You loved that I was small. You loved that I was simple." "No, that's not true. The second I wasn't," she continued, "the second I was a mother with a child and I needed you to be strong, you broke. You didn't just bend. You shattered. And you let your mother hand me divorce papers." There is no us, Marcus. There is me. And there is my daughter. The you that I thought I loved, he never existed. He was a story I told myself. And the man standing in front of me," she said, her eyes sweeping over him, "is not someone I respect. And I will not have anyone in my daughter's life that I do not respect." She nodded to her security detail, who stepped forward. "Elara, wait," he cried, as they gently but firmly took his arms. "Don't do this. I'm nothing without you." Elara looked at him one last final time. "I know," she said, and she turned and walked back to the elevator, the doors sliding shut with a silent, final hiss. 1 year later, the Ether Tower was no longer a phantom building. It was perhaps the most famous landmark in New York, a symbol of a new kind of power. Its owner, Elara Vance Sterling, was no longer a secret. She was an icon. Forbes had put her on its cover not just as a billionaire, but as the strategist. Time had named her Mother of the Year, a dual-meaning title celebrating both her daughter and her philanthropic revolution. Her life was no longer a fortress. It was a statement. Today, the main boardroom, a room that had once been her secret war room, was full. The entire board of Aurasphere, a collection of the sharpest minds in tech, finance, and media, sat in respectful silence. Elara stood at the head of the table. She was not the CEO of old hiding behind an E. Vance pseudonym. She was not the simple designer who wore quiet cashmere. She was in a striking custom-tailored white suit, her hair pulled back. She commanded the room not with a gavel, but with an aura of absolute, unshakable authority. And so, she was concluding, tapping a smart screen that showed a graph climbing towards the heavens. The Q4 profits from the Aura Life Biotech division have outperformed all projections by 80%. The Vance protocol for cellular regeneration is now in Phase 3 trials. Aurasphere is not just a wellness company. We are now officially the future of human longevity. The room erupted in applause. She let it die down her face, serene. "Thank you," she said, "but that's not the final item on the agenda. The final item is personal." She clicked a remote. The screen changed, dissolving from stock tickers to a single beautiful photograph of a smiling one-year-old girl with Elara's eyes sitting in a field of wildflowers. "This is Lily," Elara said, her voice softening, but losing none of its power. "1 year ago, I started a charitable fund in a moment of clarity. I called it the Phoenix Foundation because I thought I was rising from the ashes." She paused, looking at the faces around the table. "I was wrong. I wasn't just rising. I was protecting. The work we've done this year providing legal aid, emergency housing, and financial extraction for victims of domestic and financial abuse has been vital, but it's not enough." She clicked the remote again. The words, "The Lily Foundation," appeared over the photo. "As of today," Elara announced, "the fund is being renamed. It's no longer a story about my past, it's a promise for her future. And its mission is expanding. It's not just about a shield, it's about a sword. We will no longer just help women escape bad situations, we will fund them to build new ones." A new slide appeared. The Lily Scholars. Full STEM scholarships for single mothers. To the Aura Seed Fund Venture Capital, specifically for female founders who have left abusive partnerships. The Safe Tower Initiative. Funding for childcare centers in corporate parks, starting with our own. "We are not just helping women escape," Elara said, her voice ringing with conviction. "We are helping them win. We are building an army of new leaders, new founders, and new creators, all funded by the work we do in this room. The Lily Foundation will not just be a charity, it will be an engine." There was a stunned silence, and then, led by Sebastian, the entire board rose to their feet in a standing ovation that was less about politeness and more about genuine, thunderous awe. An hour later, the boardroom was empty, save for Elara and Sebastian. She had kicked off her heels and was rubbing her temples. "An engine?" Sebastian smiled, handing her a bottle of sparkling water. "I liked that." "I meant it." Elara sighed, taking a sip. "Any final updates on the old world?" Sebastian knew what she meant. He pulled up his tablet. "The quarterly Where Are They Now report, boss, you got it." He swiped. "Richard and Eleanor Lockwood. They sold the last of Eleanor's personal jewelry, the pieces we couldn't legally seize, as collateral to pay off the last of their credit card debt. They live in a rented condo in Delray Beach. Their old money friends won't talk to them. They're social pariahs. They are for all intents and purposes ghosts. Good, Elara said quietly. Not with malice, but with a sense of finality. The house, the Greenwich mansion, was sold at auction to a hedge fund manager who, ironically, made his first fortune shorting Lockwood Textiles a decade ago. He had it torn down, built a glass box. Nothing of them remains. Poetic. And, Marcus, Sebastian's smile faded slightly. He tried Elara. He really tried. Tried what? He tried to break the NDA. About 6 months ago. He was working a dead-end job in San Diego and decided he was owed a piece of your new public life. He went to the Daily Veil, our least favorite tabloid. Elara tensed. And, Sebastian said, Julian Thorne is a sadist and a genius. The Veil's lawyers called us as per the injunction. We faxed them the NDA, the entire 40-page document. Their legal counsel called Julian back. I have the quote. He said, Mr. Thorne, this is not a non-disclosure agreement. This is a legal work of art. It's a suicide pact. The penalty clause wasn't just financial. It was reputational. It gave us the right to buy every billboard in his city and post his bank statements on them. It gave us the right to take out full-page ads detailing his fraud, his cowardice, his conspiracy. What did the Veil do? Elara asked. They threw him out, literally. Their lawyers then sent him a bill for the 3 hours they spent reviewing the NDA just for wasting their time. Elara was silent. He's not a threat, Elara, Sebastian said gently. He's nothing. He's an assistant manager at a rental car agency near the Phoenix airport. He's a man bound for the rest of his life by a single document, a consequence of the one and only time his mother tried to be clever. Elara stared out the window at the city that was now unequivocally hers. She thought of Marcus in the hospital, his face a mask of weakness. She thought of him in the lobby begging, and she felt nothing. He was a story that had ended, a prologue to her real life. I know, she said, echoing her last words to him. She stood up and put on her suit jacket. The CEO armor was back on, but only for a moment. The board meeting is over, Mr. Vance, she said, a rare, real smile touching her lips. Indeed, Ms. Vance Sterling, he replied. Good, because I'm late. She tapped her watch. Lily has baby Mozart in the park, and if I miss the Twinkle Twinkle finale again, her nanny Clara will have my head. Sebastian laughed. The world's most powerful woman terrified of a neonatal nurse. Clara is terrifying, Elara said, grabbing her bag. She has standards. Elara walked out of the ether tower, not through the private garage, but through the main lobby. The life of a recluse was over. The press was always there, a small, semi-permanent cluster of paparazzi, but they were respectful now. They snapped photos of her, the CEO, the mother, the icon. She gave them a polite, firm nod. The car dropped her at the edge of Central Park. She walked onto the great lawn, and the entire world melted away. There on a blanket was her daughter, happily banging on a brightly colored toy piano. Lily looked up. Her face, a perfect miniature version of Elara's, split into a gigantic, drooling, joyful smile. Mama, but she shrieked, launching herself into an unsteady 1-year-old's run across the grass. Elara scooped her up, burying her face in her daughter's hair, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and sunshine. This was the asset. This was the bottom line. This was the entire company. The boardroom, the billions, the empire. They weren't the victory. They were just the fortress. They were the walls she had built to protect this single, perfect, giggling shareholder. "Hi, my sweet girl," Elara whispered, kissing Lily's head, as the 1-year-old babbled about her music. "Did you have a good day? Did you sign all your contracts?" Lily just giggled and clapped her hands. Elara sat on the blanket, a billionaire, in a bespoke suit playing with a plastic toy. She had been handed a war in her most vulnerable moment, and she had responded by building an arsenal. She had been told she was nothing, and she had responded by becoming everything. She looked at her daughter, her future, and smiled. The fire was over. The phoenix had not just risen. She had landed. And she was home. That's the story of Elara Vance Sterling, a woman who was pushed to her absolute limit, only to find out she had no limits at all. She proved that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's building an empire. It's a reminder that a person's worth is never determined by those who try to tear them down, but by the strength they find to stand up. She was handed divorce papers when she should have been handed flowers, but she turned that betrayal into the fuel for a global movement. What did you think of Elara's ultimate revenge? Was she too harsh, or did the Lockwoods get exactly what they deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of drama, resilience, and sweet, sweet justice, make sure to hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs an empowerment boost, and subscribe to the channel. We have new stories just like this one dropping every week, and you don't want to miss what happens next.